Alright, what's going on everyone? Today I want to talk about the Clash at the Dragon. So this was a $500 Magic Arena tournament that was happening on MTGMelee, which is a site that lets people host digital Magic tournaments. Like anyone can go there, host a tournament, anyone can join. Most of them are like free to enter, no prizes, just kind of like fun tournaments, like FNM style tournaments. But every once in a while you do get a prize pool, and this one had $500 for a $0 entry fee. So that sounds like free money. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but that does indeed sound like free money. So why not? Why not go for it? So it's a standard tournament on Magic Arena, and I have a few competitive decks on that platform, and I've made videos for most of them. I have Simic Flash, I have Rakdos Aggro, and I have basically all of the Aristocrats decks. I have two versions of Rakdos Sack. I have like the pre-Theros version, and then I have the post-Theros Kroxa and Butcher version. I also have the Obosh version, which you've seen. I made a video about it. And I also do have the Lurrus version, although I haven't made a video about that. But looking at the metagame page, the choice is pretty clear. If you look at the top, we have all the sacrifice decks. These decks are doing really well, at least at the time of this tournament. These decks are absolutely crazy. I mean, they're split up amongst a bunch of different versions, but they're all like fundamentally the same, or at least they're all very, very similar. And I have all of these, so like I could pick any of these top tier Aristocrats decks. So it's an easy choice. Aristocrats is clearly the way to go if I want the best chance of winning. So anyway, I registered Simic Flash because I like it. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I made the wrong choice because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll have you know that I made the wrong choice because I know exactly what I'm doing. The fact of the matter is I'm just more comfortable with the deck. I've played it more, and even though I have played plenty of the Aristocrats decks, I like playing the Simic Flash deck. It's pretty fun, and I generally know how to navigate every matchup as opposed to the Aristocrats decks, which I've played a lot of, but not to the extent of Simic Flash. So Simic Flash it is. So leading into the tournament, I naturally agonize over my deck list, mostly the sideboard. I'm very concerned about the mono red matchup, which is always very bad. It's just too fast, and the counter spells in Simic Flash are too slow, so you're usually dead before you can get anything going. So I have 2 Ether Gusts, I have 3 of the Threnody whatchamathings. I literally dedicate a third of my sideboard to the mono red matchup, and basically I'm just hoping that I don't get matched up against that deck. So we get our first round pairing, and the interesting thing about this tournament is that the deck lists are open, so you can see exactly what your opponent is playing after you're matched up with them. The problem is, I have no idea how to do that. I watched a tutorial of MTGMelee, and it was very obvious. There's this giant deck list on the side of the screen. Pretty simple. So I'm looking at that same screen and there's no deck list, and I'm just like, what I need, how do I do it? How do I do? So I don't know, whatever. My opponent's waiting. So we start our match and I just go in blind, and they have a Chandra avatar. So it's like, Chandra, mono red. I'm doomed. But wait, their first play is a Sacred Foundry and they play it tapped, so I'm thinking, great, not an aggro deck. I kept a pretty land heavy hand, but I have relevant spells. You know, I've got Quench for the early game, I can flash in Preserver to surprise block an early attacker, I've got lands for Great Shark later, you know, seems okay. I top deck and opt, so that'll smooth out everything as well. So I play my landed pass as you do with this deck, and my opponent plays Drannith Stinger. God, I'm super doomed. Oh god. So my opponent's playing the cycling deck, and here's the problem. It's like mono red on steroids. Fortunately, when they attack with the Stinger the following turn, I can block with the Preserver. You know, they get some value out of it by cycling, but overall, it's not bad. So maybe we can survive the early game. That's all we need to do, because if they start getting their threats out, that's when I'm going to lose, because I can't do anything about them after they're down. So getting a Stinger out of the way is great. And then they play another one. Okay, the same thing plays out next turn. They attack. This time I flash in a Cutthroat to trade with it. They cycle some more, deal some more damage, but the board is clear again, which is all I'm looking to do. I just want to keep this board clear in the early game. So I play my landed pass, and the plan right now is to opt and Cutthroat on my opponent's turn, but unfortunately they have a Fox, and the correct line is probably to opt and dig for a counter, because not letting that resolve is pretty important. But I let it go, and my opponent follows it up with another threat. This time a healer, not so threatening, but Still obnoxious, but at least they're tapped out, so I play Cutthroat, I quench the healer, leaving me with a 3-2 on the battlefield, and a Great Shark in hand, and the mana to cast it. I swing in because if they want to trade, that's fine, but they take it and I assume they're going to cycle and swing back with a giant fox next turn. But first they deploy another threat though, which is perfect for me. So I Great Shark, counter the creature, and now my opponent can't cycle enough to make the fox big enough to attack into the shark. They do cast another fox though, but at this point I'm willing to trade the Cutthroat for a fox, so I swing in with both my dudes. They go to 6, though I know the backswing is going to be very painful. I'm expecting to take a ton of damage, but I'm hoping to just survive and then swing back for the win. And because I could swing back for the win, I'm hoping that they just won't attack. They do swing though, which is suspicious, and I debate casting a Cutthroat and blocking, but at the end of the day, like, they either spend all their mana cycling, which won't kill me, and it leaves them defenseless, or they just hit me for a small amount, so I just let it go, whatever. If they play another threat second main phase, I can counter it, so I'm pretty fine. So I go to 10, and they do play another threat, it's another fox, but this is actually so non-threatening at this point, so I just let it go, like it's fine. I Cutthroat and opt at the end of turn, and I get a Brazen Borrower, which is great because it can bounce these foxes with all their +1/+1 counters. I could bounce their 1/1 and attack, but instead of bouncing it, I just attack all in. They try to cast Zenith Flare, which probably wins them the game, but I have that Frilled Mystic in hand, and now the opponent has no way to win the game, so that's that. Not bad. Alright, off to a great start. 1-0. Now this is best of 3, so we have 2 more games against this deck, but so far so good. Game 2 did not go so well. The opponent has a fox on turn 1, and what can I do about that? Nothing. I do have a Brazen Borrower in hand, so at least we don't have to worry about it getting too out of hand. You know, we can always bounce it, but it's not good. So I naturally do nothing the first couple turns. They play another threat on turn 2, and I can't do anything about it. Now the board is looking very bad for me because now all they have to do is cycle a whole bunch, and there's nothing I can really do about it, which is basically what happens. They cycle, they hit me for a bunch. I Growth Spiral so I can ramp into a Nightpack Ambusher, which is basically my only chance of stabilizing. I just need to get an Ambusher in play to start blocking and producing tokens to block. The following turn they swing and I play my Trap card, but the opponent has an Ether Gust, so I go to 5. The following turn they attack again. I try to play both Cutthroat and Borrower to try to survive, but they have a Mystical Dispute for the Borrower, and that's that. It was that quick. That did not go well. So I'm 1-1 in this first match, and winning is pretty important because this is an 8-round tournament, and by the looks of things, going 6-2 isn't gonna cut it for top 8. You need to go 7-1 at minimum, so losing the first match not great because that basically means I have to go undefeated for 7 rounds straight. So, you know, winning here pretty important. So my opening hand has basically no lands, but I have a Scry land, so maybe it's okay? Maybe? Not a land. That's a fox on turn 1 and I hate it. Fortunately on turn 2, the opponent tries to get another threat down and I have just the answer, and that's a land. Great. Just one more, right? Just one more. We're gonna be fine. Maybe. Unfortunately, my opponent deploys another threat, and this time I don't really have an answer. I can't even opt to dig for a quench because I only have one blue source, so I just have to let it go. My only hope now is they attack with the fox and we block and kill it, which is exactly what happens, although they do cycle and kill my own fox, or my elf archer I guess. But overall, I'm pretty happy to survive the early game, so whatever. I opt and get the wrong color land, so I'm forced to bottom it because I just really need a blue source. And what do I draw? A blue source that comes into play tapped. This is literally my only Thornwood Falls in the deck. I converted them all to Fabled Passages and Temples of Mysteries before the tournament to improve my mana base, but I kept one in. This one that I very much don't want to draw right now. So anyway, I do have a Cutthroat now, so if they attack I can flash and block, so maybe it's not so bad. Unfortunately, they have another threat because there's no end to them. They do attack, so I flash in the Cutthroat and it gets disputed, which is really annoying. But we have a Frilled Mystic, we have a Cunning Nightbonder, we've got Nightpack Ambusher on top. I might be able to stabilize. I think we're pretty close here. The opponent opponent attacks, I flash in the Night Bonder to block. I go for the Ranger because the tokens kind of suck, and after they cycle some, I'm at 11, facing 4 combat damage on board and an Ambusher on top. The following turn they attack and I flash in the Ambusher, and this is finally where the game starts turning around in my favor. I can kill the Stinger. Those 1/1 tokens are smaller than my 3/3 tokens. It's gonna be fine, if only they didn't have an Ether Gust. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. So I go to 7, and it might be too late to stabilize because they can just cycle a bunch and finish off my last points of life with the Stinger, but when they attack the following turn, I flash in the Ambusher again, thinking that, it's probably too late, but we might as well try. And they have another counter spell. Magic is fun, guys. It's super. I can't complain, I'm playing counter spells, but anyway, I lost my first match. Yep, great. I'm good at Magic, guys. Subscribe for top tier Magic content right here on Affinity for MTG. So anyway, the problem with this tournament is you basically have to be at your computer all day. I mean, this tournament is operating like an FNM, right? We have Swiss rounds, 50-minute Swiss rounds, but you can't leave your computer and come back when the next round starts because the round ends when the last match finishes. So it could be the full 50 minutes, but it could be, 40 minutes. It could be half an hour if everyone finishes really fast. So you basically have to be at your computer all day to ensure that you're around when the next round starts. And I do believe you can enter your phone number and have like a text message sent, which sounds like a good idea, something to consider. But I'm just on the Discord and on MTGMelee waiting for the audio prompt that the next round is starting. And in the meantime, I do what any self-respecting content creator would do in their free time when they're stuck on their computer. I went to Twitter. What's this? So I left Twitter, faced with the sad realities of life amongst a rapidly devolving species. I decided to do what any self-respecting content creator would do. I made a meme. I opened my arena client, I made a terrible deck, I challenged Sparky to a deathmatch, and I played 2 whole turns until I could get this precise screenshot. Then I cropped out the over button and I posted it on Twitter. That's right, guys. You just witnessed a comedic mastermind at his craft. Clearly, I'm a comedic genius. No one liked the meme. No one. It was dumb. Stupid meme. Stupid. I'm not funny. So anyway, I get my second round pairing, and at this point, I'm fully aware that all I have to do is click this little button in the bottom corner to see the opponent's deck list. I forgot. Yep. So I go into the second round as blind as the first, and after a couple turns I try to flash in a Brineborn Cutthroat and it gets countered, and it looks like I'm up against some sort of like Dimir Flash or Esper Control type of thing, and then they play a Spectral Sailor, and I know that this is going to be a super fun Flash matchup. The Flash matchups are crazy, they're ridiculous, and I always love playing them just because they're fun. I don't always win them, but they're fun. So they flash in an Octopus on an attacking Sailor, and I have a Brazen Borrower, but instead of bouncing it right away, I let it resolve, and then I bounce, so it bounces both creatures to the opponent's hand, so they have to dedicate their mana to recasting both of them. I play my own Spectral Sailor at end of turn, and then they replay theirs in response, but unfortunately, I'm losing this battle because their pirate is one of the fancy full art ones, and mine isn't. I mean, how can I compete? I can't. So I attack because I'm ahead on life, so it's like whatever. They choose to trade, and then I do my 200 IQ play of casting Nightpack Ambusher on my own turn. I know, it's crazy, right? But the reason is they just have no blue sources, so I just want to get this Ambusher down. That's it, I just want to get it down, want to get on the board while they're tapped out so I don't have to worry about counter spells. And it works brilliantly. I mean, look at this. We have a Nightpack. Oh, they bounce it with Brazen Borrower. Okay, that's an option. So the following turn, they have blue mana sources open. It does indeed get countered, but now they're tapped out, so I can make the 200 IQ play of casting an Ambusher on my own turn again for the second time in one game. It does give the opponent a free turn, and they resolve a Slitherwisp, but I'm hoping my Wolf can keep up with that. I mean, it's bigger. They're going to draw a card whenever they play a flash creature, but we're going to get a token every turn. Most of their creatures are smaller than my token, so it's like, is it kind of okay? It's sort of okay. I think I can at least race it. So I swing in, I get 4 damage in, I get a token, and I pass with 2 counter spells in hand and a Brazen Borrower waiting to be cast. They do nothing, so I cast the Borrower. On my turn, they try to cast a Night Bonder, but I counter that because I want the ability to counter my opponent's creatures. And then they try to cast Heartless Act to kill my Ambusher, but I counter that as well. At this point, I'm all in and I'm out of gas, so I swing with everything. Opponent goes to 4 and they need to go super wide or wipe the board to survive here. They play a Brazen Borrower and they mutate an Octopus. Then they bounce my Ambusher, which is a pretty good turn, but I top deck a second Ambusher. I swing with everything. They have to do some trading to survive, and they do so just barely. And for the 3rd time, I cast an Ambusher on my own turn while their mana is tapped down, so I don't have to worry about counter spells. They cast a Borrower and an Octopus so they can block and survive another turn, but I get a Wolf token and I'm sitting here with another Ambusher in hand and a Cutthroat while they're sitting at 1 life and the opponent scoops it up. So that was a pretty nice victory. That went pretty well. Great. I only had to cast Night Pack Ambusher on my own turn 3 times, but we got there. So game 2 is a little awkward because neither my opponent or I want to make the first move, so we literally spend the first few turns playing lands and passing. Fortunately, I have Growth Spirals though, so I'm ramping and drawing cards during the stalemate. So by the 4th turn, I've actually passed my opponent in land count, despite the fact that they went first, which could be pretty important when both of us are flinging Quenches and Mystical Disputes at each other. 5 turns deep into the game, I get an Ambusher and decide to run out a Cutthroat to draw out counter spells and clear the way for the wolf. It doesn't get countered, which is awkward, not what I expected. So I attack for 2 with plenty of stuff to do at the end of their turn. They do nothing, of course, because that's how flash decks work. So I run out a Wildborn Preserver and it resolves. So at this point I have 5 power on board, so I'm just like, alright, whatever. I attack, they go to 11. The opponent then tries to cast a Slitherwisp on my turn. And this is very interesting because I have counter spells, but I don't want to get into a counterspell war on my turn because I really want the Cutthroat to get all the counters. So I actually just let it resolve. I don't want to get into a counterspell war right now. So at the end of their turn, I attempt to bounce the Slitherwisp. They play a second one in response so they can draw a card, and I counter that second Slitherwisp with Mystical Dispute, and then they dispute my dispute, so okay then. But I have 3 mana open, so I just pay the 3, and at this point I'm feeling pretty proud of myself because the counterspell war happened on their turn just like I wanted, and my Brindborn Cutthroat is getting freaking huge until they cast a Heartless Act and remove all the counters because, you know, that's a cool thing to do. Thanks for that. I was all excited and now it's just fine. But there's still a trigger on the stack, so next turn I swing for 5. I deploy my Ambusher on my own turn again because they're tapped out. They get a Slitherwisp down, but I just attack all out the following turn and that's lethal. Whew, okay, we're 1-1. We're not out of it yet. I'm feeling better about this. You know, I mean, we lost the first round, but I mean, we did get a game out of it, right? We went 1-2 and we 2-0'd that. So even though we're 1-1, we actually have a positive record in terms of games. We're 3-2 in games. So it's like, you know, hey, that's not bad. So between rounds, I noticed that MTGMelee has all kinds of really cool statistics that actually update every round. Like you can see the rankings and how good different decks are doing and whatnot. So I checked my rank, and out of 206 people, I am ranked 183rd. Well, I'm no longer feeling better about this. What the heck? To be fair, this hasn't updated with the second round yet because the second round isn't over. So I was ranked 183rd at the end of the first round where I lost. So fair enough. So anyway, after an uneventful time between rounds, I get paired up for round 3. And this time I actually remember to check which deck my opponent is playing. And they're on a really slow, sort of like Sultai mid-range type of deck. And that bodes really well for me because they're slow enough that I should be able to deploy threats early and hold up counter spells late, which is what this deck wants to do anyway. So this looks like a pretty favorable matchup and I'm feeling pretty good while I wait for my opponent to do whatever. What's happening? I don't know what's happening. So I'm sitting here waiting and I wait some more and I'm contacting my opponent and asking what the heck's going on because, I mean, they're not doing anything and I'm stuck. Guys, I'm stuck. What's happening? I mean, this is all on me too. My opponent is telling me that their end game, they kept their hand and they say that I'm timing out. Meanwhile, on my screen, I'm stuck in this waiting for the opponent's screen, and they're timing out. So, but Magic Arena, why? And we just restart, so it's like, it's whatever. I'm feeling super self-conscious though. If my opponent has to like mulligan, I'm gonna feel really bad. Fortunately, my opponent does keep their opening 7, and I definitely don't. So we're off to the races, I guess. Whatever. The game actually plays out exactly like I want it to. I get a turn 2 Cutthroat. My opponent does play Atris, and I counter it, and I'm ready to play an Ambusher and ride it to victory. They do play a Nissa, which is kind of problematic, but it also means they're tapped out. So I get my Ambusher down, and at this point it's not too bad because even though these Nissa tokens are annoying, they trade with the wolves. The only difference is I get my wolves for free, and they have to lose a land every time they lose an elemental, so it's a favorable trade for me. So I swing all at Nissa, they block, Nissa goes to 2, they lose a land, I get a wolf token. At this point I have Frilled Mystic in hand for any board sweepers. They escape an Uro, and since that gets in the way of my attackers, I counter it. They animate a land, and on my turn I do some attacking. The opponent loses everything, I lose a Mystic, but I get another wolf token anyway, and at this point I'm feeling pretty far ahead on board, but I have no counter spells in hand, so it's a little bit precarious. And then the opponent plays another Nissa, which is kind of annoying. They play their final card in hand, which is a Thought Erasure, so I run out all my creatures because I don't want them to take the creatures, so they get my Growth Spiral, and at that point my opponent scoops to the sheer amount of power I have on board. Not bad, not bad. So game 2, I'm super flooded and I mulligan, only to be super flooded some more. I keep this one mostly because I have an opt, so I'm hoping that will help us kind of get out of this, though my hand is really vulnerable to, hand disruption. Great. So I'm left with a handful of lands and one single solitary opt, which finds me a Brazen Borrower, which I can't really cast, but I mean it's not a land, so that's good. So I play Temple, I scry, I see another land, so I bottom that, opponent Uros, and on my turn I draw a land. Thanks Magic Arena. Fortunately, I am going to get this Brazen Borrower down, so I cast that at the end of the opponent's turn. Draw Growth Spiral because lands. I attack for 3 and pass. They play a Cavalier of Thorns, so I Growth Spiral, looking for a counter spell, but guess what I find? It's a land. It's a land. I wanna die. Look, I put up a good effort. No, I didn't put up a good effort. The game's over. Alright, on to the next one. What a pile of doo-doo. I'm gonna build a freaking land destruction deck. So, game 3 it is. And at this point, if I lose, I'm basically out of the tournament. There's no, we can't go 1 and 2. We're not gonna go 6 and 2 and get into the top 8 most likely. So, this has to be good. This has to be a win. My opening hand doesn't have a lot of land, but after last game, I'm kind of okay with that. Opponent addresses me. I Growth Spiral, ramp into an Ambusher, and it gets countered. I get another one though, and the following turn I'm able to Growth Spiral and hit my 4th land. So now I'm ready to take over this game with Ambusher, but my opponent plays Atris, and I have to counter that. So Frilled Mystic it is, counter the Atris. I attack for 3 on my turn. Now I'm ready to Ambusher, but they have another Atris, so I choose to opt instead, looking for a counter spell, but I miss. So they get an Atris, and I'm seeing a board sweeper on 2 lands. So I show my opponent the board sweeper and I hide the 2 lands, hoping that they get greedy. I don't know why they would, but like, what am I gonna do? Show them 2 lands and a hidden card? They'll probably take the hidden card. So like, there's no way for this to be favorable really. So it is what it is. They take the board sweeper. It's an obvious choice. End of turn, I flash in a Preserver. On my turn, I attack all in. They trade with the Preserver, but on their turn, they play Anissa, which is really, really annoying. Have I mentioned how annoying Anissa is? She's always annoying. They produce a token, but choose not to attack, so I flash in an Ambusher at end of turn and send everything at Nissa. They trade with the Mystic, I get a token. On their turn, they play the board sweeper from earlier, which actually has a really cool effect on Magic Arena. That's cool. They then try to escape an Uro, but I have a Great Shark at the ready, leaving them tapped out and me with a 5/4 on board, but they do make a token. I top deck an Ambusher, so that's cool. I attack Nissa and they block, and on their turn, they escape an Uro and create a token, and that's I mean, okay, sure. So the opponent swings with the token, and I'm like, I got him. I'm gonna flash in, I'm gonna kill it, here it goes, and it works. My Ambusher resolves, I kill the token, and I'm like, haha, look at me. And then they follow it up with a Cry of the Carnarium, which takes out my wolf because it has damage on it. Yep, sure. So I play a cutthroat at the end of turn, and at this point, I can't attack. There's an Uro in play. The following turn, they make a token, they cast a massive Hydroid thingy. I counter that with Road Mystic, but they still get all the cards and the life. They hit me for 6, so on the backswing, I kill Nissa, but they have another extinction event, so great. At this point, they're dealing 6 per turn, and I can deal 5 back to them, which is already less to begin with, but also they're gaining 3 life every time they attack with Uro, so this isn't good for me. And at this point, I'm so desperate that I actually just flash in a Mystic as a blocker, but it gets countered, because why wouldn't it? And then they resolve a Cavalier of Thorns, and all hope is lost because it has reach, so not even a Brazen Borrower could save me. I mean, my only hope was get a Brazen Borrower, bounce to Uro, start attacking for 5. It was possible, but now they have a bigger creature than my Shark, and it can block a Brazen Borrower and a Shark. So, yep, that's it for me. That's it. What can you do? What can you do? Simic Flash, you failed me. And that was that. That's how I spent my Saturday, or at least about 3 hours of it. I did a quick search to see how the other Simic Flash decks did, or at least how they were doing at that time when I dropped. The archetype was 43rd in the tournament for win percentage. Remember, that's 43rd in terms of archetypes. I didn't even know there were that many archetypes. So yeah, the deck wasn't doing well. What's interesting is the deck has an obscenely high game 1 win rate of 77%, but then drops to 26% after sideboards, which is exactly what my record showed. I mean, my first match, I won the first game and then lost both sideboard games. Round 2, I went 2-0, and then round 3, I won the first game and lost both sideboard games. So there's some consistency there, right? The deck does really, really well before sideboarding, but then seems to fall apart after the opponent sideboards and some hate cards for it. So the following day, I checked the top 8, and sure enough, yep, it's a Lurrus Aristocrats deck on top. That could have been me. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been, but I mean, I could have played that deck. I have it. I take a look at it. It's basically, yep, I have this deck. I don't have Feed Artisans, but I mean, I could have been playing this deck. So at the end of the day, I went 1-2 in matches. I went 4-4 in games, so perfectly even. My dumb meme got a whopping 2 likes, and I think we broke the world record for casting Nightpack Ambusher on our own turn on purpose. So that's cool, right? Anyway, so if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. Tournaments are happening all the time on MTGMelee, so I mean, I could make more videos like this. They're very time consuming. The amount of editing and whatnot takes forever, so not going to be a regular thing. But if you do like it, let me know, and I can do more of this sort of like tournament report style of video if you're interested in it. But in the meantime, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.